Welcome, everyone, to another deep dive, and this time we're wading into the world of AI in healthcare.
Mhm.
But not just any AI. We're talking about the kind of AI that we can actually trust.
Right, exactly.
And that actually gets used because, let's be honest,
Yeah.
there's been a bit of hesitation, maybe even some apprehension about fully embracing AI in clinical settings, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's this gap,
Yeah.
between all this incredible potential of AI
Yeah.
and and how it's actually being used in the real world.
And that is exactly where the source material for this deep dive comes in,
Yeah.
the future AI guidelines.
Right.
These guidelines were published in no less than the British Medical Journal,
Hmm.
and they're the product of a massive collaboration, 117 experts to be precise,
Wow.
from all over the world. In fact, all continents are represented.
Really?
And what I think is so cool about future AI is that it doesn't just talk about these lofty ideals,
Right.
it actually lays out a practical roadmap for creating trustworthy and, just as important, deployable
That's key.
AI for healthcare.
Absolutely. That's a really important point because future AI looks at the entire life cycle of AI in healthcare.
Yeah.
From the moment you start designing it
Hmm.
to how you monitor it after it's actually out there being used.
And it does that, this whole taking into account the whole life cycle,
Yeah.
by focusing on 6 core principles, very conveniently forming the acronym Future AI.
Right. Very memorable.
It's like a cheat sheet
It is, yes.
for trustworthy AI.
It's a great framework, and each of those letters, of course, represents a key principle
Okay.
that the guidelines go into in depth.
So let's unpack this future AI galaxy,
Okay.
shall we? Starting with F for fairness.
All right, so fairness, well, this is all about ensuring
Yeah.
that the AI performs equally well for everyone,
Right.
regardless of, things like their background or demographics.
So no algorithmic bias, which unfortunately we've seen in other areas.
Absolutely.
Where AI is being used.
Mhm.
It's good to see they're tackling this head on.
Yeah.
Okay, what about the U in future?
Okay, so U stands for universality.
Okay.
And this means we want AI that works not just in, a perfect lab setting,
Right.
but in the diverse and sometimes messy world of real hospitals and clinics.
You can have the most brilliant AI,
Yeah.
but if it can't adapt to different settings and patient population,
I'll really use this.
totally useless.
Right.
Okay, so
T is for traceability,
right.
and this is about, transparency and accountability.
Okay.
So future AI emphasizes documenting the entire journey of the AI,
Okay.
from how it's developed to how it's used,
Mhm.
so that we can understand how it makes decisions and identify any problems.
It's almost like an AI audit trail.
It is.
It's like giving an AI its own medical record, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. We're halfway through.
All right,
Yeah.
what does the second U stand for?
Second U is for usability.
Okay.
And this one's all about the human element, right? AI in healthcare needs to be easy and safe for healthcare professionals to use.
Right.
Think about intuitive interfaces, clear instructions, that sort of thing.
Because even the most brilliant AI is useless.
Yeah.
If doctors just find it frustrating to work with,
Right? Can't use it, then what's the point?
okay.
R is for robustness. Healthcare data
Yeah.
can be messy, can be
Yeah.
inconsistent.
Yeah.
So AI tools need to be able to handle those real-world variations without breaking down.
So it can't be like a delicate flower
Right.
that wilts at the first sign of, messiness.
Right.
It needs to be able to weather the storm
Exactly.
of real-world data.
Yeah.
That brings us to E.
E, explainability. This is a crucial one,
Yeah.
especially in healthcare.
Right.
It's about making sure we can understand the reasoning behind an AI's decisions.
Right.
We need to be able to peek inside the black box, so to speak.
It's like that question, would you trust a medical diagnosis from an AI
Yeah,
if you had absolutely no idea how it got to that conclusion?
exactly.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Okay, so those are the 6 core principles.
Yep.
Fairness, universality, traceability, usability, robustness, and explainability.
That's it.
It's a pretty comprehensive
It is.
set of guidelines, I think, for building trust.
And what's really important
Yeah.
is that future AI goes beyond just listing these principles.
Yeah.
They have 30 specific, actionable recommendations
Okay.
that address each of these principles.
It's not just a philosophical framework. It's like, it's practical, hands-on.
It's a guide for building and deploying trustworthy AI.
It is, yeah.
And it gets very granular, like, for example,
yeah.
the fairness. One of the recommendations is to start thinking about potential bias
Okay.
before you even start coding.
That's interesting.
So, it's not about fixing bias after the fact. It's about designing AI
Yeah.
to minimize bias from the get-go.
And I imagine, this is where it's not just about the data scientists who are building the AI.
Right.
It's about bringing in a diverse team
It is.
of people, including clinicians, ethicists, maybe even patient representatives,
Yeah.
to really kind of look at, okay,
Proactive bias detection.
proactive bias detector.
Exactly. Think about all the potential sources of bias
Yeah.
that might be specific to their tool.
It's like building bias awareness into the AI's DNA from the very beginning.
Exactly.
And it's not just about the people, it's about the data too, right?
It is, yeah.
I mean, I think about, medical data comes from different hospitals,
Absolutely.
different equipment. It's labeled by different people.
Yeah.
It seems like a breeding ground
It can be.
for inconsistencies and biases.
Yeah. Future AI really encourages developers to look at those data-related biases.
So it's like a holistic approach.
That is.
From the team to the data to the algorithms themselves.
Yeah, and they give very specific recommendations
Right.
for how to evaluate and mitigate bias,
Okay.
including things like data resampling or using fairness-aware algorithms.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So it's about empowering the
Yeah.
developers with the tools and knowledge
Yeah.
they need to build fair and unbiased systems.
That's right.
Okay, so we've talked about fairness.
Yes.
How about universality?
Okay.
How do they tackle the challenge of creating AI
Yeah.
that can function effectively in all these different healthcare settings?
So one of their key recommendations
Yeah.
is to define those clinical settings from the outset
Okay.
and anticipate potential variations across those settings.
So if you're developing an AI
Yeah.
to diagnose, let's say, a particular condition,
Mm-hmm.
you need to think, is this going to be used in a primary care clinic?
Yeah.
Is this going to be used in a specialized hospital?
Right.
What are the different
Exactly.
contexts in which it might be deployed?
Because those variations can be huge. Different types of patients, different equipment,
Yeah.
different expertise of the healthcare professionals.
It's like trying to design a car
Right.
that can function perfectly
Yeah.
on a smooth highway,
Yeah.
a bumpy dirt road, and maybe even off-road terrain, you got to think
That's great analogy.
about all those things
Yeah.
from the beginning.
Yeah. And another key recommendation is using community-defined standards
Okay.
wherever possible.
Like what kind of things?
So that might involve using standardized definitions of diseases,
Okay.
agreed upon data formats,
Yeah.
Using established technical specifications for medical devices.
It's almost like making sure that your AI can speak the same language
That's what I
as
figured.
all these different healthcare systems
Exactly.
that it might encounter.
Yeah. Using those standards helps to make sure everything's interoperable
Yeah.
and you're not creating something too specific to one place.
Okay. So it's about building AI
Yeah.
that can adapt to this diverse and often fragmented landscape of healthcare.
Exactly. And importantly,
Yeah.
they emphasize that even if an AI works well generally,
Okay.
it still needs to be evaluated in that local context,
Right.
and it's going to be used.
That makes sense because you might have something that works great on average,
Right.
but there might be something specific
Exactly.
about a particular hospital
Yeah.
or a particular patient population that requires some adjustments.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about fairness and universality. Let's move on to traceability.
Okay.
Why is it so important
Yeah.
to document every step of the AI's journey?
Well, we're talking about AI being used in healthcare.
Yeah,
Decisions can have a huge impact on people's lives.
right.
So traceability is about transparency
Yeah.
and accountability.
Right,
It's about being able to answer questions like, how was this developed?
right.
What data was it trained on? How was it validated? Who is responsible for its performance?
It's almost like giving the AI a pedigree,
It is.
right? A history that we can trace back
Yeah.
to understand its origins.
If something goes wrong.
And if something goes wrong,
Yeah.
you can retrace your steps
Exactly.
and figure out, okay, how did we get here?
And Traceability 1
Yeah.
really emphasizes that idea of proactive
Okay.
risk management.
So it's not just about documenting what happened.
Yeah.
It's about thinking ahead.
It is.
What could go wrong?
Exactly.
And having a plan
Yeah.
to address those potential problems.
Yeah, those risks could include, bias creeping into the data, the AI making bad predictions,
Yeah.
data breaches that compromise patient privacy.
What about the human factor?
Oh, absolutely.
What if a doctor misinterprets the AI's output
Yeah, human error.
or uses it for a purpose that wasn't intended.
Huge concern. Yeah, and future AI really wants developers to think about these things
Yeah.
from the beginning.
So it's not just about the AI itself, it's about how the AI
It's the interaction.
interacts with the humans who are using it
Exactly.
and, the potential for things to go wrong in that interaction.
Yeah, and to ensure transparency,
Yeah.
traceability 2 really talks about documentation.
Right.
So this means, technical documents for developers,
Good.
information leaflets for users, public-facing information,
So you've got different levels
different levels.
of information
Right.
for the people who built it, for
No, no.
people who are using it,
Yeah.
and even for the general public
Yeah.
who might be impacted by it.
The more transparent we are,
Yeah.
the more trust we can build.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Transparency
Yeah.
fosters trust, and trust is essential when we're talking about using AI to make medical decisions.
Absolutely. And when it comes to ongoing monitoring
Yeah.
of an AI after it's been deployed, traceability 3, 4, and 5 really emphasize this idea of continuous quality control, periodic auditing,
Yeah.
and keeping the logs of the AI's usage.
So it's like making sure that it's behaving
Yes.
as expected once it's out
Yeah.
there in
Yeah.
the real world.
Catch any problems early.
Yeah.
So traceability 3, that's about building mechanisms into the AI
Okay.
to monitor its performance, to flag any errors or inconsistencies.
It is like the AI is constantly checking itself,
It is.
making sure its data is clean,
Mm-hmm.
its calculations are accurate. It's almost like a built-in safety net.
Exactly. And then traceability 4
Yeah.
takes it a step further, recommends periodic audits
Okay.
by independent experts.
So it's like a regular checkup for the AI.
Exactly.
Make sure everything is still running smoothly.
Yeah. And to help with those audits, traceability 5 is all about keeping detailed logs
Okay.
of the AI's usage. So, who used it, when they used it, what data they input.
It's like a black box recorder
It is.
for the AI. Yeah.
Okay. And then finally, traceability 6,
Right.
AI governance.
This is a big one. Yeah.
So this is figuring out who's in charge of the
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah.
Who's responsible for it.
Exactly. Who's monitoring it?
Who's making decisions about updates and modifications.
Right.
I mean, we have systems in place
We do.
to govern how human doctors practice medicine.
Yeah, right.
It stands to reason that we need similar systems
We do.
to govern how AI is used in those settings.
Absolutely. Oversight and accountability are key.
Okay, so we've covered fairness, universality, and traceability. Let's shift gears and talk about usability.
Okay.
How does future AI help to make sure
Yeah.
that AI tools are actually easy and safe
Yeah.
for healthcare professionals to use?
So usability 1, again.
Yeah.
It's about being proactive.
Okay.
It stresses the importance of defining the intended use and user requirements from the outset.
So involving the end users, the people who will be using the AI in the
Right.
design process itself, absolutely. You don't want to just design something in a vacuum and then throw it over the wall
No, you gotta
and hope for the best.
Yeah, you gotta understand.
You got to understand
There's-
how they're actually going to use it.
How are they gonna use it? What are their needs? What challenges might they face?
I imagine you'd also have to consider the technical expertise of the users, right?
Of course.
I mean, a specialist might be more comfortable with a complex interface
Yeah.
than a general practitioner.
Absolutely. You have to understand the needs of those users
Yeah.
and design it to be as easy as possible for them.
It's about meeting users where they are,
It is, yeah.
so to speak.
And usability 2
Yeah.
builds on that idea of user-centered design
Okay.
by emphasizing human oversight and control.
Right. This is what we were talking about with traceability.
Exactly.
The AI should be a tool
A tool.
that helps the doctor, not replaces the doctor.
That's right. And so the guidelines recommend that AI systems have mechanisms
Yeah.
for human AI interaction. So that might be an intuitive interface,
It might.
but lets the doctor see, okay, here's how the AI is reasoning.
Right. Here's the data it's using.
Here's the data it's using.
Here are the parameters.
Give them the ability to adjust the parameters or even override the AI if necessary.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's not about blindly trusting the AI. It's about
It's about empowering.
empowering the doctor to use it correctly.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
And then usability 3 focuses on training.
Yeah.
Even if it's really user-friendly,
Mm-hmm.
you still need some training
Yeah.
to make sure healthcare professionals know how to use it.
It's like any new piece of medical equipment,
Yeah.
right? You need some instruction.
You need instructions.
You need some hands-on practice
Yeah.
to make sure you're using it safely.
And it's got to be tailored to the specific user.
Right. So it's not one size fits all
No.
when it comes to AI training.
No, not at all.
Okay. And usability 4 and 5, these get to the heart of actually measuring whether the AI is truly usable, right?
Right.
It's not enough to just ask the doctors,
Yeah.
do you like it? Do you find it easy to use?
Do you find it pretty?
Yeah, exactly. You need to see if it's actually helping.
You need to measure it.
You need to measure
Yeah.
the impact on their workflow, on patient care.
So usability 4,
Yeah.
that's focused on evaluating user experience.
Okay.
So this might involve conducting user studies
Yeah.
where healthcare professionals actually use it
Right.
in a simulated setting
Right.
and give feedback.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're getting real-world
Real world.
feedback from people who would actually be using it.
Yeah. And then usability 5
Okay.
takes that evaluation a step further
Yeah.
by looking at the AI's clinical utility and safety.
So this is are diagnoses more accurate?
That's it.
Are treatment decisions better?
Yeah.
Are patients benefiting?
Mm-hmm.
Are there any unintended consequences
Right. It's about the real world impact.
of the AI on healthcare?
Okay. So usability is about making sure the AI tools
Mm-hmm.
are designed with the human in mind
Right.
and they're actually improving healthcare,
Yeah,
not just adding a layer of complexity.
absolutely.
Okay. Let's move on to robustness,
All right.
which is all about making sure the AI can handle
Yeah.
the real world,
The messiness
the mess
of real world data.
And as we've already said, the data in the real world is rarely as clean
Right.
and as perfect as the data that's used
Or in the lab.
to train the AI in the lab.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of variability.
Yeah. So robustness 1
Yeah.
encourages developers to think about those sources of variation
Okay.
early on.
Like what kind of variation?
So, for example,
Okay.
if you're developing an AI to analyze medical images,
Hmm.
you need to think about how might variations in the imaging equipment or the protocols or even the skill of the technician affect the performance.
So you need to build an AI
Yeah.
that's resilient? It is.
To those kind of variations.
And robustness, too,
Yeah.
is about training the AI with real-world data
Okay.
that reflects that diversity.
So again, it's that idea of not teaching to the test.
Exactly.
Right. If the AI is only trained on perfect data,
It will fail.
it's going to fail.
In the real world.
In the real world,
Yeah.
it's like teaching a child to ride a bike on
Yeah.
a perfectly smooth surface and then expecting them to navigate a city street.
Right. They need to be prepared
They need to be prepared
for the potholes,
for the messiness.
for the bumps,
Yeah.
for the unexpected.
And that leads us to
Okay.
robustness 3,
Okay.
which is, really testing it
Right.
on data that includes those variations.
So how do you actually go about doing that?
Well, there are a few different ways you can introduce noise into the data.
Okay.
You can simulate different scenarios. You can test it on data from multiple sources.
So you're really putting it through its paces.
You are, yeah.
Yeah.
Making sure that it can handle
The unexpected.
unexpected.
Yeah.
Okay, so robustness is all about preparing the AI
Yeah.
for the wild world
For the wild world.
of real world data.
Exactly.
And finally, explainability.
Okay.
As we said, this is particularly crucial
I think it is, yeah.
in healthcare.
Particularly because the stakes are high.
Stakes are very high when
Yeah.
it comes to medical decision making.
It is?
So explainability, it's about understanding how the AI got to its conclusions.
Exactly.
It's like trust but verify.
Right. And explainability 1
Yeah,
emphasizes that those needs for explainability
right.
should be defined in collaboration with the users.
So it's not just the AI spitting out some random explanation.
Yeah.
It's about working with the doctors to say
Yeah.
what kind of explanations would actually be helpful
What would be useful to you?
to you in your clinical practice.
Exactly. Different use cases.
Yeah.
Might need different types of explanation.
I can see that. Like if it's analyzing a medical image, a radiologist might want to see what parts of the image
Yeah. What are you looking at?
is the AI focusing on.
Right.
Whereas a cardiologist using an AI to, predict heart attacks
Right.
might want to know how different risk factors were weighted.
Exactly.
So it's about tailoring
It is.
the explanations to the specific user and the specific task.
Absolutely. And it's not enough to just provide any explanations.
Right.
They have to be accurate and meaningful.
Right.
So explainability 2
Yeah.
is all about evaluating those explanations themselves.
So you're checking the explanations.
Checking the explanations.
Make sure they're not misleading
What?
or oversimplifying things.
Exactly.
Okay, so explainability really about making AI a partner in healthcare,
A partner, not just a black box.
not just a mysterious oracle.
That's right.
Okay, so we've gone through those 6 core principles of future AI.
Yeah.
But I understand there are some broader recommendations as well that apply across all of these principles.
So in addition to the 6 principles, future AI also includes a set of general recommendations.
Okay, so let's get into those. What are some of those broader considerations?
Well, one of the key themes
Yeah.
is the importance of engaging with a diverse range of stakeholders.
Again, this seems to be a recurring theme.
It is
Yeah.
throughout future AI.
In future AI, it's not just about the AI experts.
No, it's not.
It's about bringing in all these different voices
Okay.
and perspectives.
General recommendation 1
Yeah.
really emphasizes that.
So it's about creating this culture of collaboration,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Where developers, healthcare professionals, patients, ethicists, everybody feels heard.
Everyone has a voice.
Everyone has a voice.
Yeah.
It's recognizing that trustworthy AI is not just a technical challenge.
Yeah.
It's a human challenge. It's a social challenge.
It's all of that.
It's all of those things.
Yeah.
Okay, what else?
Well, data privacy and security.
Right.
Absolutely paramount.
Yeah.
So general recommendation 2
Yeah.
focuses on that.
So we're talking de-identification of data,
Yeah.
secure storage systems,
Mhm.
access controls,
All of that.
all of those things.
Yeah, it's about building those safeguards in from the very beginning.
It's about building ethical AI,
It is.
not just AI that works.
That's right.
Okay, so, and what about,
Yeah. Well, and then there's general recommendation 3,
okay,
which really highlights the importance of having a plan
okay.
to address the risks and limitations of AI.
So again, we're back to that idea of being proactive,
Proactive.
thinking about what could go wrong,
Yeah.
and having a plan to address those problems.
Exactly. And general recommendation 4
Mm-hmm.
builds on that idea
Okay.
by emphasizing the need for a comprehensive evaluation plan.
So it's not just about hoping for the best, it's about actually testing
It is.
and measuring
Yeah.
and making sure that,
You have to see if it works.
yeah, that it's actually meeting those standards.
Exactly. And then general recommendation 5
Yeah.
reminds us that AI regulations,
Yeah.
they're constantly changing.
Yeah, they are.
So developers need to stay informed.
That seems like a challenge,
It is.
especially in healthcare.
Especially in healthcare, the regulations are very complex
Yeah.
and they vary from place to place.
Yeah, so you're right, it is a challenge.
But it's really important
Yeah.
to stay on top of that.
To make sure that the AI is being used in accordance with the latest guidelines.
That's right.
Okay.
And general recommendation 6
Mm-hmm.
brings in ethics again, urges developers to really investigate those ethical issues
Right.
that might be specific to their application.
Because I imagine the ethical considerations for an AI that's analyzing medical images
Yeah.
might be very different
Oh, very different.
from an AI that's used to, let's say, predict a patient's risk score.
Absolutely, yeah. Different concept.
Different context, different considerations.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important
Yeah.
to involve ethicists in that process,
Right.
to make sure that you're thinking through all of those angles.
So it's about being sensitive to the nuances of the particular application.
Exactly.
Okay, what about that final general recommendation?
Okay, so general recommendation 7. This one encourages developers to think beyond
Okay.
that immediate application
Yeah.
and to consider the broader social and environmental impacts.
This is something we're hearing more and more about.
It is, yeah.
Right.
It's that idea that technology doesn't exist in a vacuum.
Yeah.
It can have ripple effects.
Right. It can impact.
Impact society.
Yeah, it can impact society. It can impact the environment.
Absolutely. And so we need to think about both the positive and the negative.
Yeah.
Strive to create AI that benefits everyone.
So it's about responsible innovation.
It is.
It's about thinking about the consequences
Yeah.
of AI and making sure that it's used for good.
That's right. Creating AI that's good for healthcare, but also good for society in general.
Yeah, so those general recommendations really broaden the scope of future AI.
I think they do.
And they give us this more holistic view.
It's not just about the technical stuff.
It's not just about the technology.
It's about the human side,
Right.
the ethical side.
So it's about all of those things coming together.
Yeah.
And it's great to see that these guidelines are actually having an impact
Yeah, they are.
on how AI is being developed.
They're starting to be implemented.
Yeah, and it's really cool to see how these ideas
Yeah,
are
yeah.
being translated into action.
So one of the things that Future AI has done a great job of
Yeah.
is providing really practical guidance
Okay.
alongside those high-level principles.
So it's not just a theoretical
Yeah.
framework.
No, it's very practical.
It's a handbook. It's a toolkit
It's a toolkit, exactly, yeah.
for building trustworthy AI.
Yeah, they've broken down each recommendation into actionable steps
Okay.
and given concrete examples.
Okay, I want to hear about some of those practical examples. Let's start with the design phase. When you're first starting an AI project,
Yeah.
how does future AI guide developers to create trustworthy AI from the very beginning?
Okay, well, one of the first steps,
Yeah.
and we see this throughout the guidelines,
Yeah.
is to bring together those stakeholders.
Right. Everybody.
Everyone involved, yeah. Get a diverse team together.
So we're talking clinicians,
Clinicians,
data scientists,
statisticists,
ethicists,
patient representatives,
patient representatives, yeah.
legal experts.
Legal experts, everyone has a seat at the table.
It's almost like a brain trust for trustworthy AI.
It is.
Right.
It is. You're bringing in all this different expertise.
And then once you have that team,
Yeah.
what's next?
So you got to define what you're trying to do.
Right.
Right. What's the intended use? What are the user requirements?
So, if you're building an AI
Right.
to analyze, let's say, chest x-rays,
Yeah.
you're not just thinking about the technical side.
Yeah.
You got to think about who's going to be using it.
Who's going to be using it?
Where are they going to be using it?
Right.
What are their needs?
Right. You're thinking about the context
Context, yeah.
in which this AI will be used.
Yeah, exactly.
Not just the technical problem you're trying to solve.
Yeah,
And that feeds into thinking about the variations as well,
it does.
right?
Different settings.
Different settings, so a chest x-ray AI that's used in a small rural clinic
Right.
might need to be different
Absolutely.
than one that's used in a big urban hospital.
Different equipment.
Different equipment.
Different levels of expertise.
It's like designing that car, that can handle the highway and the dirt road
That's it.
and the off-road terrain
You got it.
all in one
Yeah, you got to think about all those things
from the beginning.
from the beginning.
Okay, and then of course there's the bias.
The bias.
Right, that we need to be thinking about
From the start.
from the start. So how do we proactively address that?
Well, you have to think about how factors like age,
Mm-hmm.
gender, ethnicity,
Socioeconomic status.
socioeconomic status, how all of those things
Yeah.
might be represented in the data and how they might influence the AI.
Right, and I imagine, that might involve looking at where the data comes from.
It does. The data itself can be biased.
The data itself can be biased.
Right.
So how is it collected?
How was it collected?
Was it collected in a way that might have introduced,
That might have skewed it.
skewed the data in
Yeah.
a certain direction?
Absolutely.
So it's about being very aware
It's about being aware.
of those potential biases in the data itself.
And future AI gives specific recommendations for that,
Okay.
like data resampling,
Mm-hmm.
using those fairness-aware algorithms.
Okay, so it's really about giving the developers
Yeah,
the
yeah.
tools they need
Yeah.
to create fair systems
From the beginning.
from the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what about explainability?
Explainability, right?
I mean, we talked about how important that is.
We did, yeah. And future AI stresses that you should be thinking about that in the design phase, too.
So it's not just about, okay, we built the AI and now let's figure out how to explain it.
No, you think about it from the start.
You think about it from the start,
Yeah.
and I imagine that involves conversations
It does.
with the intended users of
Yeah.
the AI.
So, you're talking to doctors and saying,
Mhm.
what kind of explanation
Should be helpful
would be helpful to you?
to you, right?
Exactly.
Because what's explainable to, a data scientist
Yeah.
might not be explainable
Might not make any sense.
to a busy clinician
Yeah,
who's seeing patients all day.
that's right.
So it's about really understanding
Yeah.
the needs
Of the users.
of the users in that context.
Exactly.
So it seems like this design phase is really about
It's about setting the foundation.
setting the foundation, laying the groundwork
The groundwork.
for trustworthy AI. It's about thinking carefully
It is.
about the use case,
Mm-hmm.
about the users,
Yeah.
about the data,
Yeah.
about the ethical implications,
It's the ethical implication.
and about how to bake in that explainability from the very beginning.
Yeah, it's really crucial.
Okay, so let's say we've gone through that design phase, we've done all that groundwork.
Right.
So now we're moving into actually building the AI.
Building it. Yeah.
How does future AI guide developers
Cut.
during that development phase?
So one of the most important things in this phase
Yeah.
is collecting that good training data set.
Okay, so And we've talked about this, but it's worth emphasizing.
It is.
This means that the data has to reflect the real world.
Right. And that can be a challenge,
It can.
getting that data.
So how do developers go about?
Well, Future AI recommends, collaborating
Okay.
with lots of different institutions, looking at public data sets,
Yeah.
that have been carefully curated.
So you're really trying to cast a wide net
You are
to get data from a variety of sources
a variety of sources.
and make sure that it's representative.
Exactly. You don't want your AI to be surprised when it encounters something
Right.
in the real world
That it's never seen before.
that it's never seen before.
Okay. So, and I imagine,
Yeah.
this whole data collection process
Yeah.
raises concerns about patient privacy.
It does.
Right. We're talking about sensitive information here.
You are.
How does future AI address that?
Okay, so they talk about things like getting informed consent,
Okay.
using de-identification techniques,
Yeah.
making sure that all the data practices are ethical.
So being transparent with the patients about how their data is being used
Absolutely, yeah.
and making sure
That's
it's protected. General recommendation 2 really stresses that
Data security.
data security.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got your data. You've taken all the steps
Yeah.
to protect privacy and security.
Now you're building that model.
Okay, now you're actually building the AI model.
Yep.
What are some of the key considerations there?
Okay, so general recommendation 3, remember the one about addressing risks.
Yeah.
You have to build those mitigation strategies
Into the model itself.
into the model itself.
So if you identified potential bias in the design phase,
Right.
you need to
You need to address
you
it
need to come up with
while you're building it.
come up with some techniques to mitigate that.
So things like data augmentation, using fairness-aware algorithms, that sort of thing.
And what about robustness? I mean, are there specific techniques?
Yeah, you might use regularization,
Okay.
domain adaptation, things like that.
So it's about being proactive
It is.
and building those safeguards into the AI
from the very beginning.
from the very beginning. And
Yeah.
and what about usability?
Usability. Right, this is where you start building those mechanisms
Okay.
for human AI interaction.
So the AI, it needs to be something,
A tool,
a tool, not a dictator.
not a dictator.
Right. You want the AI to be
A partner.
a partner, a collaborator.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we've got training.
Training, yes. Usability 3
Usability 3.
stresses that.
This seems so important.
It is. You have to train those healthcare professionals.
Yeah, and I imagine, the training's going to be different
It will be.
for different users.
Different levels of expertise.
Different levels of expertise, different needs.
Okay, so we've designed the AI, we've built it,
Built it.
we've trained the users.
Yeah, we test it.
Now we test it, now we move into that evaluation phase.
Right.
This seems like a really crucial step.
It is, yeah.
I mean, particularly in healthcare,
Especially in healthcare.
where the stakes are so high.
Right, you want to make sure it works.
You want to make sure it works, and you want to make sure it works safely.
Safely, ethically.
Ethically, all of those things.
General recommendation 4
Yeah.
is all about that.
So, are there specific things?
Yeah, you have to think about what you're evaluating.
Okay.
Are you focusing on accuracy, fairness, robustness,
So it's about prioritizing.
prioritizing
What are the things that are most important
for this particular tool?
for this particular tool?
Exact.
This particular context.
Yeah, and then you have to think about the data you're going to use for evaluation.
Right.
Ideally,
Yeah.
you want data that wasn't used in training.
Right. You want to see if it can generalize
You want to see if it can generalize.
to new information.
Yeah.
It's not just about, can it, memorize the data it was trained on.
That's right. You want to make sure it can apply what it's learned.
It's like testing a student. Can they apply
Yeah.
what they've learned in class to a real world problem?
Exactly. And you also have to think about what metrics you're going to use to measure performance.
Right. So accuracy.
Accurate sensitivity,
Sensitivity.
specificity, yeah. Area under the curve.
What defines good performance?
How do you know if the AI is performing well?
Yeah, and that might involve comparing it to human experts
Right.
or to existing methods.
So you need some kind of benchmark.
You need a benchmark.
You have to compare it to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and then we've got those external data sets.
That's right. So it's universality 3.
Universality 3. So this is testing the AI on data
So a different place.
from different sources, different populations, different settings.
You want to see if it generalizes
You want to see if it can adapt
to new environments.
to new environments.
Yeah,
Okay, and then, of course, we have to evaluate for bias.
we do, yes. So Fairness 3 gives some recommendations for that.
And how do you actually go about evaluating for bias?
So that might involve analyzing the AI's performance
Okay.
across different subgroups.
Of patients, for
All
example.
patients, yeah.
Looking for disparities in its accuracy.
Exactly. Is it performing differently
Right.
for different groups?
And if so, why?
Ever so wide.
And what do you do if you find those disparities?
You go back to the drawing board.
You go back to the drawing board, you try to figure
You
out
got to figure it out.
what's causing it.
Yeah.
And you try to correct it.
Absolutely. That's all part of building trustworthy AI.
It's iterative, it's a process.
It is.
Okay, so we've talked about accuracy,
Yeah.
universality, fairness.
Right.
What about usability?
Usability, we have to make sure that it's actually usable
Right, by the humans.
by the humans who are going to be using it.
Who are going to be using it in their daily work.
So that's where usability 4 and 5 come in.
Okay.
Usability 4
Yeah.
encourages developers to do those user studies,
Okay.
get feedback from real users.
So you're actually putting it in the hands of clinicians.
You are, yeah.
And saying, okay, try this out.
What do you think?
What do you think? Tell us about your experience.
Does it work for you?
Does it make sense?
Is it intuitive?
Is it intuitive? Do you trust its recommendations?
Exactly, yeah.
And then usability 5 goes beyond those subjective opinions
Right.
and actually looks at clinical utility and safety.
Yeah. Is it improving patient care?
Is it making a difference?
Is it making a difference?
in the real world?
Is it safe?
Is it safe?
Yeah.
Are there unintended consequences?
All of that.
Okay, so evaluation, it's a pretty multifaceted process.
It is, yeah.
You're assessing all these different dimensions
Yeah.
of trustworthiness. You're using different data sets.
Different metrics?
Different metrics. You're comparing it to benchmarks.
Absolutely.
And you're getting feedback
From real users.
from real users and, of course, documenting all of that.
Document everything.
Right.
Transparency is key.
Transparency is key.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's imagine
Yeah.
that our AI has gone through all of these phases
Okay.
with flying colors, right? We've designed it.
Designed it.
We've developed it.
Developed it.
We've evaluated it.
Evaluated it.
It's fair.
It's fair.
It's universal.
Usable.
It's usable.
Usable.
Usable. It's robust.
Robust.
It's explainable. What happens next?
Now we deploy it
How do we deploy it
into the real world.
into the real world and make sure it actually has a positive impact?
Deployment is a whole other challenge.
It is.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that we need to be thinking about?
Okay, so one of the first things
Yeah.
is that even if the AI has passed all the tests,
Yeah.
it still needs to be adapted
Okay.
to that specific healthcare setting.
Right. This is universality for the local clinical validity.
Exactly.
So it's like,
you can't assume it's just going to work.
yeah, it's like a new medication, you know,
Yeah.
might need to be adjusted
Yeah.
based on the patient's age
Right.
or other medications they're taking.
Yeah, yeah. Every setting is different.
Every setting is different. And so the AI might need to be tweaked
It
or
must-
recalibrated,
yeah.
or you might need to develop additional training materials
You might.
that are specific to that setting.
Absolutely.
So it's about making sure that the AI
if it's,
fits into that local context.
it does.
Okay, and then what about monitoring?
Monitoring, right? So future AI really emphasizes
Yeah.
continuous monitoring
Okay.
once it's deployed.
So it's not just, okay, we released it into the wild. Good luck, everybody.
No, you have to keep an eye on it.
You have to keep an eye on it, so.
So traceability 3
Yeah.
is all about building in those monitoring systems.
And what are those monitoring systems looking for?
Any signs of problems,
Yeah.
errors, inconsistencies,
Unexpected behaviors.
bias,
Bias.
fairness issues.
So it's like an early warning system
It is, yeah.
for the AI.
Exactly.
And those systems, I imagine, they need to be pretty sophisticated.
They do. They have to be able to pick up on other things.
Yeah, because we're not just talking about the AI crashing
Right.
or producing an error message.
We're talking about subtle shifts.
Subtle shifts in its performance. That might indicate a problem.
Exactly. And they should provide enough information to help the developers fix it.
Okay, so we've got that continuous monitoring,
Mm-hmm.
but then we also have those periodic audits.
Periodic audits, right? So that's traceability 4.
Traceability for.
That's where you have independent experts
Oh, okay.
come in.
So it's like a more in-depth evaluation.
More in depth, looking at the big picture.
Looking at the big picture.
Yeah, how is this impacting healthcare?
And I imagine those audits would also look at the usage logs.
They would, yeah, traceability. Yeah.
Feasibility 5, right?
So those logs can tell you a lot about how the AI is being used,
Yeah, you can see who's using it,
when they're using it,
when they're using it, what kind of data they're putting in.
what kind of results they're getting.
And I imagine you can also see if there are any patterns of use
You can, yeah.
that might be problematic.
Or any unintended consequences.
Right, like maybe the AI is
Yeah.
being used for purposes that it wasn't intended for.
Or by people who haven't been trained.
Right, right. So it's really about
Getting a holistic view.
getting that holistic view of how the AI is functioning out there
Yeah.
in the real world,
In the wild.
in the wild.
That's right.
Okay, so, and then training.
Training, right.
We talked about training during the development phase,
It's ongoing.
but it seems like it's just as important
Right.
during deployment.
Yeah, because you want to make sure
That people know how to use this tool
that people know how to use it.
effectively
Yeah.
and safely.
Yeah. And that the training keeps up with any changes or updates to the AI.
So it's ongoing, it's adaptable,
It is
just like the AI itself.
just like the AI.
And of course, the legal and regulatory landscape
Right.
is constantly changing.
General Recommendation 5
General Recommendation 5.
reminds us of that.
So developers and healthcare organizations, they need to
You got to stay informed.
stay informed
Yeah.
because it seems like a full-time job.
It can be, AI regulation is constantly evolving,
Yeah.
especially in healthcare.
It is a challenge to keep up with all of that.
But you have to.
But you have to. And it might involve,
With mice.
bringing in legal experts to
That's
help you
absolutely.
navigate all of that.
To make sure you're complying with all the rules.
Okay, and then finally, there's AI governance.
AI governance, traceability 6.
Traceability 6, right?
We talked about this before.
We did, but it's worth emphasizing.
It is.
So who's in charge?
Yeah.
Who's responsible?
Who's making the decisions?
Who is monitoring the AI?
That's it. Yeah.
And this seems especially important
It is. Yeah.
as these AI systems become more complex,
More autonomous.
more autonomous, more integrated into our healthcare systems.
Right. We need to know
We need to know who's accountable,
who's in charge.
who's in charge.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a lot to think about
There is.
when it comes to deploying AI in healthcare.
Deployment's a big challenge.
It is. It's like launching a spaceship.
It is.
Right. There are so many systems
So many things can go
that
wrong.
have to work together perfectly.
Right.
And you need a really skilled team
Absolutely.
to navigate all of that.
Yeah. It's a huge undertaking.
But if we do it right,
Yeah.
the benefits could be tremendous.
AI could revolutionize healthcare.
It could.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about better outcomes for patients,
Better outcomes,
increased efficiency,
more accessible healthcare.
more accessible, more equitable healthcare.
That's it.
So it's a goal worth striving for.
It is.
And the future AI guidelines,
Yeah.
they provide a really valuable roadmap
They do.
for getting there.
I think they're a great starting point.
They are, and it's really encouraging to see
Yeah.
that so many people are taking these guidelines seriously
They are.
and trying to put them into practice.
It's happening.
It's happening. So this deep dive into future AI has been incredibly insightful. It's given us a much deeper understanding of what it means to create AI that we can trust
I think so.
and that can actually be used
Yeah.
to improve healthcare.
I think future AI is a really positive development.
It is, and it's just the beginning of the journey.
This is an ongoing process.
Right, because AI is evolving
AI is always changing.
so rapidly.
Yeah.
So these guidelines, they're not meant to be static.
They're not. No.
They're living documents.
They have to evolve with the technology.
Right, so how can people contribute
Yeah.
to that ongoing evolution? How do we keep this conversation?
Well, the Future AI Consortium,
Yeah.
they have a website,
Okay.
www.futureai.eu,
Okay.
and they're encouraging feedback from everyone.
So they want to hear from developers,
Developers,
researchers,
policymakers, even the general public.
everyone. Yeah, they want to know how people are using the guidelines.
What's working?
What's working? What are the challenges? Yeah, what are the things that need to be changed?
Exactly. What needs to be clarified?
It's almost like a crowdsourcing approach
It is.
to developing these guidelines, right?
It is, yeah.
Recognizing that this is a really complex field
Very complex.
and we all need to be learning from each other
We do.
to make sure that AI is used responsibly.
Yeah. They also have a self-assessment checklist
Okay.
that developers can use to see how their AI measures up.
So you can kind of check your AI
Check your AI, yeah.
against the guidelines,
Against the guidelines,
Is he-
where you need to improve.
where you need to improve.
Yeah,
So it's like a scorecard for trustworthy AI.
it is, yeah.
Okay, so, and they're also
They're also doing
Yeah.
webinars, workshops,
conferences, that kind of thing,
all of that, yeah, bringing people
to
together.
talk about these issues.
Yeah, And I think that's so important
It is.
because it really is a collaborative effort,
Yeah.
building trustworthy AI.
Okay, so we've explored these future AI guidelines. We have.
We've talked about how they're being used,
Yeah.
but I want to step back for a second. Think
Okay.
about the bigger picture
Okay.
and think about this broader conversation about the role of AI in healthcare. What are your thoughts about AI's potential to, completely transform how we approach medicine?
Oh, wow. I mean, where do I even begin?
Yeah.
AI has this incredible potential, and I think we're only just scratching the surface of
Yeah.
what's possible.
Yeah.
One of the things that really excites me is how AI can help us
Mhm.
make better diagnoses and treatment decisions.
Right. We've talked a lot about that.
We have, and for good reason.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. AI can analyze these massive data sets, right?
Yeah.
And pick up on these subtle patterns
That humans might miss.
that humans might totally miss. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that could lead to earlier detection of diseases,
Yeah.
more accurate diagnoses,
Yeah.
personalized treatments.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
And even new therapies. Oh, absolutely. The potential for drug discovery is huge.
That is, yeah.
So it's really about augmenting human intelligence,
Yeah.
not replacing it.
And it's not just about the clinical side of things either.
No, not at all.
AI can also help us to streamline healthcare processes, right?
Absolutely.
Reduce those administrative burdens, make healthcare more
More
accessible,
affordable.
more affordable.
Yeah. So AI can help us tackle those systemic issues that have been plaguing healthcare for so long.
Right. So it's about using technology to create a more equitable
Yeah,
and a more efficient system.
exactly.
So it's all very exciting.
It is.
But there are challenges, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, what are some of the biggest challenges?
I think one of the biggest, and we've talked about it quite a bit today,
Yeah.
is making sure that AI is used ethically and responsibly.
Right. We can't just throw technology at the problem
No.
and hope for the best.
We have to be thoughtful
Yeah.
about how we develop and deploy these systems.
Yeah. And that's where, frameworks like future AI
Absolutely crucial.
are so important.
Yeah, it's we have to be mindful of bias.
Mm-hmm.
We have to protect patient privacy.
Yeah.
We have to make sure that these technologies are used in a way that benefits everyone.
Right. So it's about making sure that AI is used to empower people,
Yeah,
not to disenfranchise them.
exactly.
Okay, so we've got those ethical challenges,
Mhm.
but there are also technical challenges as well, right?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Building robust AI systems
Yeah.
that are reliable,
Right.
that can handle the complexities of the real world. It's not easy.
And we've talked about how important it is to train AI on that diverse data,
It is. Yeah.
to test it in those real-world settings,
Yep.
to make sure it can adapt.
It's got to be able to adapt.
Yeah, because the world is constantly changing.
That world's always changing.
Yeah.
Healthcare's always changing.
So the AI needs to be able to change with it.
That's right.
So it sounds like a lot of work,
It is. There's no doubt about it.
both on the technical side and
Yeah.
on the ethical side.
But I'm optimistic.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think, we're having these conversations. We're
Yeah.
developing these guidelines like future AI.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing more and more awareness
Yeah.
of the need to do this responsibly.
So we're on the right track.
I think so.
It's a journey. It's going to take time,
It will. Yeah.
but we're heading in the right direction.
I agree.
Okay, so we've talked about future AI.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about those broader considerations.
Yeah.
But I want to leave our listeners with this one final thought.
Okay.
As AI becomes more and more integrated into healthcare,
Yeah.
it's going to raise a lot of questions.
It will.
Right? Questions about ethics,
Privacy.
about privacy, about responsibility,
Yeah.
about the nature of healthcare itself.
Like a whole new world.
It is, and it's going to require all of us
Yeah.
to really engage.
Patients, doctors, developers, everyone.
Yeah, everybody needs to be part of this conversation.
Absolutely.
To think about how we want to shape
Yeah.
this future.
I think that's a really important point.
Yeah.
This isn't something that could be decided by a small group of people,
Right.
in a closed room.
It has to be a public conversation.
It does, yeah.
It has to involve everybody.
It has to involve everyone. We need to make sure.
Because ultimately, the goal is to make sure that AI benefits everyone,
Absolutely.
not just a select few.
That's right.
It's about creating that more equitable,
Yeah.
more accessible healthcare system that we've been talking about.
A system that puts patients first.
A system that puts patients first.
That's what we want.
So I encourage all of our listeners
Yeah.
to join this conversation.
Check out the Future AI website.
Visit that website, learn more.
Learn more about the guidelines.
And think about the role that you want to play
Yeah, what can you do?
in shaping this future.
Yeah.
Because it's happening now.
It is.
The future of AI in healthcare is being shaped
Right now.
right now.
Yeah,
And we all have a role to play.
we do.
So this has been a really fascinating deep dive
It has.
into the world of trustworthy AI.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
Okay, so that's it for this deep dive into the future AI guidelines. We hope you found it informative,
I hope so.
and we hope it's given you some food for thought.
A lot to think about.
As AI becomes more and more integrated into our lives,
It is.
and particularly into the world of healthcare.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
It is. So until next time,
Yeah.
stay curious.